welcome Sebastian Kreft and Frank Jackel to the stage. They are both managing directors for Metalshub. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I think all of us agree this year was a challenging year for the steel industry, and this year was a challenging year for the ferroalloys industry. I think most of you will agree next year is also going to be a challenging year. Although it's really nice to hear that there's some optimistic people around, like the likes of SMR and Fast Market, who see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So another challenging year ahead. In Mexico they have a saying, no te preocupes, ocúpate, which means don't worry, do something about it. So this presentation is how to steer your ship through the rough seas which are ahead. And if you look at the ship, we believe the ship is powered by data and it's steered by people. So the world is changing. And we believe we have entered a stage also in the ferroalloy and in the steel industry where we are at a situation which we call the new normal. So first, commoditization. So if you look at the last 50 years, commoditization started probably in the oil industry, in the energy commodities. It moved to the coal industry. Let's say 10 years ago roughly, it also called the iron ore industry. And we believe that all the commodities are going through this commoditization cycle. And the ferroalloys will be no exception, and we already start to see this in some of the ferroalloys to happen. The second thing is digital. This is a mega trend. It started with us as a consumer, things become digital. It is now in full swing in companies where large steel companies, large producers of ferroalloys, and large trading companies are undergoing digital transformations. And this is a trend which will not reverse, and it's also not going to stop. It's going to continue to go this way. And this motto, powered by data and steered by people, will apply. The third one, like it or not, the industry is getting more transparent. And this transparency we can also credit to some of the people here in the room, for example, the Fast Markets people, who are driving transparency in the ferroalloy industry by reporting market prices. You can also look at the LME. So the LME started with a copper contract, then in the 70s they started a nickel contract, and it's moving also into other commodities. Let's take moly. So they were not very successful with the moly oxide contract, but they're not happy with that, so they are now changing it from a physically settled contract into a cash settled contract. So we'll also expect that this transparency, it's not going to be reversed. It's the new normal. Some of you may know this slide, but I like it because it shows that the speed of change in the world is accelerating. So if you look at the telephone, fantastic invention, it took 75 years until 50 million users would use a telephone. If we look at Facebook, it took 2 years until 50 million people use Facebook. And I'm not sure how many billion people are now registered, but it's enormous. So the speed of change is really picking up. So I'm not going to go into Pokemon Go, because that's something that my children like to do. But for Pokemon Go, it only took 19 days. So the speed of change is really accelerating in this world. Platforms play a role. So Facebook is a platform in the B2C world, Airbnb is a platform in the B2C world, Amazon is a platform in the B2C world, but the B2B world is really catching up. And we really see that platforms are driving innovation also in the B2B world, and there's now, let's say, throughout the metals value chain, the steel value chain, the ferroalloys industry, a lot of platforms which have come up and drive innovation. So Frank is going to talk again about the ship and how you can steer the ship and what you can do and how this all relates to you.
So we're talking about data, But what do we mean with that, and what's the impact of data actually on your business? Think of it, all these platforms that Sebastian showed earlier, what they provide is of course more and more data that weren't available in the past, and that is changing the behavior of people. If you look today at the B2C world, the behavior of buyers has changed dramatically. People show nowadays a digital buying behavior. Second point is, data will change the way decisions are made. Because data, more and more data, in-depth data, big data are available, what we will see is that data-driven decision-making models are becoming more and more important. And the third thing is, of course, that with it, the work style changes. Companies don't operate in the digital world in the same way you're used to in the physical world, where you invest into a mine or a beneficiation plant. Let me go into those things in a bit more detail. So if we look at the very first part, the digital behavior of customers now. So what does it take to attract new customers? In the past, it was clearly sales, it was marketing, you went to conferences, networking, wine and dine. Those were the things that actually attracted new customer to you. This is how you got new customers. What does it mean in the world that is coming, in a data-driven world? It'll be Google search, SEO, CA, industry platforms. Anybody here knows what SEO is? So hands up for those who know exactly what SEO means. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, probably 10. Of those of you who know what SEO is, do you know your SEO ranking of your company? Oh, that's literally nobody. And I guess then it's the wrong question to ask, how do you improve your SEO ranking? So SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. And what it means is, if you're on the second page of Google, your company doesn't exist in the digital world. People don't go past the second page. And if you want to attract new customers, this is a tool that you need to somehow master. It doesn't mean that you need to employ now the next SEO expert in order to get yourself up there, but you need to find clever ways of actually being present in the digital world. That's the way you're going to be found by new customers in the future. How do you convince customers? In the past, it was really around personal relationships, brand name. That still will exist. Don't misunderstand me. All these things that we see here on the top, they will still continue. But on top of that, people base their decisions in the digital world, in a data-driven world, on reviews and ratings. Would you buy on eBay or Amazon from a company that has literally not a single rating? You wouldn't. You buy from somebody who has 20, 30, 50 ratings with 5 stars. You don't buy from the one that doesn't have a single rating. And yes, it's new to everyone, but our children will grow up in that world, and they will make decisions based on that. They will base their decisions also on certificates that they find online, on recommendations, online content, everything that you can find in this digital space about the company. That's how you convince the customer in the future, on top of having the personal relationship. And how do you keep a customer happy? Of course, certain things will never change. If you offer them a good price, they will be happy. If you offer them quality, they will be happy. If you're fast and flexible, those are all good things to have. But on top of that, you need to offer them convenience, connectivity. No customer in the next in 10 years' time, customers will not accept anymore that they will receive, 5 to 10 offers, have to manually transpose those offers from an email into an Excel table to compare them, then to show that to their internal superiors in order to get the approval for that, and then choose the best one to negotiate with them, and on top of that, then transpose that into the SAP system that they have. That's unacceptable, especially in times where efficiency is the one measure in order to cut costs. And I think we all agree that these are times where cost-cutting measures are becoming more and more important. Speaking about the second thing, it was data-driven decision-making. Companies invest these days into systems, tools, and people because they are the backbone to drive data-driven decision-making. And I'm not saying that we didn't do decisions or didn't make decisions in the past. They were all data-driven, but the availability of data has improved a lot. And companies invest heavily into data collection, CRM tools, price data feeds, logistics costs models, and of course also gathering proprietary data. When you speak to steel companies these days, they all talk about we need to connect our machinery, our devices, etc. in order to gather data. And that's something that companies invest millions, if not billions. They invest into data analysis, into data and business intelligence tools. How can you actually visualize data? Because people will still be the decision makers. And they will invest into data scientists. And last but not least, they will also allow for businesses to make quick decisions. In a data-driven world, you cannot do a kind of a, first of all, form a steering committee of 10 people that meet on a monthly basis. On the first meeting, you just discuss what's the next step and when to meet again. That's not how it works. Companies in the data-driven world, what they do is they have business experiments. They form very small teams that try something out and they learn from that. And that's what we call an agile work mode. And I want to compare, I'm not saying this is applying now to everything, but if you wanted to invest nowadays into a new beneficiation plant or a new steel mill, first of all, you would collect all the requirements, everything you do lots of analysis, then you have steering committees, you produce the specifications, you will build, and then you check at the end whether your results meet the specifications. And that's a lengthy process. Companies like Amazon or Alibaba, they work in a different way. What they do is they create MVPs, minimum viable products. They build them, they measure their success, they learn from it, and then they improve it. And they do this cycle over and over and over again. And every cycle might only be 2 weeks. So they try to push a new product into the market within 2 to 4 weeks, try it out, test it, see what the results are. They gather the data coming back from that, and this is how they drive their business model. And speed is far more important than perfection these days. And there's an interesting quote from a startup where somebody said, look, if I built up something nowadays, I need to be fast. Why do I need to be fast? If I was a chess player and I can make 2 moves while the grandmaster of chess can make only 1 move, I will win every time. And that's true. If you're faster than your competition in this world, you're more successful. You might think that this is all not real, but there's another industry which is closely related to our industry, and I just read this morning, the logistics industry invested in 2018 $12 billion into digital setups for logistics. $12 billion is about the size of the ferrochrome industry in total. And they just invest that into digital business models. And that was 2018. There was an increase probably in 2019 again. So the investments into this area are becoming more and more. But there are 3 things to keep in mind in this world. Number 1, data security is very important because you cannot afford to lose customers because you've got a leak. You have data maybe online somewhere where somebody else can have access to that. It's absolutely important, and this is, for instance, one of the reasons why we at Metalshub have dedicated resources in our development team that do nothing but actually securing our links, access points, where we run tests, etc., in order to make sure that we don't have any data leaks. The second thing that is very important is invest into something that scales. If everyone comes up and, of course, tries to do their own solution, that won't fly. Yeah, you will spend a lot of money trying to create your own systems, their own ideas, etc. You will employ, I don't know, 5, 6 people, and by the time you have implemented that, it is probably then already out of date. Yeah, and that relates to speed again. So what do you need to do is you need to focus on your core competences and leverage existing solutions. I think that's very important. Yes, they're not always perfect. They're not always doing 100% what you have at the moment as processes in your company, but if they do 90%, that's fair enough. That's where you can learn, that's where you can do something, and that's where you can try out something. And the problem is, of course, it's not going to be easy. Yeah? We all know that. But is it necessary? Yes, because this will come. It is the new normal. And the sooner you, of course, get into this and understand how can you adapt to this world, the more successful you will be.
So just as a final slide, some people have been asking me, what are you doing? Is this really working out? So Metalshub is now in its 2nd year in the market. If you look at the number of companies which have registered for Metalshub, it's more than companies which are present here at this conference. And if you look at the growth, so in the first year we had around $25 million, which was transacted legally bindingly over our Metalshub platform. So this year we're aiming for around 90 million. And some of the industry leaders, for example, Outokumpu in the stainless industry, or Magneto in the foundry industry, are using Metalshub for their business. And that's it. And we're happy to take some questions if there are any. Do you have an independent company checking how secure your data security is? So data security was already mentioned by Frank. So it's absolutely crucial that your system is safe. At the same time, you have to say there is no system in the world, if you throw enough resources at it, that cannot be cracked. I'm talking government level. Everything can be cracked. So what we do is we take every step which is possible. And if you look at data security, one measure you can take is to do penetration tests. So we are using independent experts to try to penetrate our system, to learn and try to let them help us find if there's any weaknesses in the system. So yes, we do this with independent security companies. Now that we have this anonymous questioning mode, no one in the audience wants to ask any questions anymore. Which products, commodities do you focus on? So we are focusing on ferroalloys. So we believe for copper, aluminium, zinc, there's a non-metal exchange, which is already a platform for trading those commodities. So we are focusing on commodities which are not yet traded over an exchange. So the most liquid commodity is ferromolybdenum, probably followed by ferrochrome and manganese metal. And then there's ferrovanadium, ferrotungsten. Most of the other ferroalloys are covered. I mean, basically, we look at our customer. So what does the stainless steel mill buy? What does a carbon steel producer buy? What does a foundry buy? And we cover the majority of those products. Will you extend to China, India to sell byproducts? What of course products? So the first one I would Frank, do you also want to answer some questions?
Yeah, I can. So when it comes to extending into China to sell or buy products, I'll come on the stage as well. Yes. I mean, in the long run, this is of course a global platform and we are already present there. So we have clients or users from China and India that buy and sell products over this platform as well. Of course, we are a European company. Our core focus was in the beginning Europe, but over time we will surely expand these services into that area. When it comes to ores, this is not something that we cover at the moment. That doesn't mean that in the future it could be covered there, but we see a lot of differences there when it comes to ores, and it would require probably a lot of adaptations from our side also to the system. That's why we're saying at this point in time, no, this is not relevant for us.
And this second question relates to it. So one of the reasons why we don't do ore at the moment, so if you are a platform, if you are a marketplace, the most important thing is liquidity. So it's like a disco where there's no one there. The few people that are there will leave very, very soon. So you need to make sure that the disco is full, otherwise it's not going to work. So we're really focusing on the ferroalloys and on the products which are bought by steel mills, so we're not in the aluminium industry, to create this liquidity. So how many deals are made per day? So the deal size you've seen, so around 90 million euros, which we're going to transact. So that's going to be around 400 transactions, 400 to 500 transactions, which we're going to have this year. It also shows that, let's say, the average transaction size is not small, which is driven by steel mills which make large purchases in the spot market.
How much does it cost to use Metalshub? First of all, registration and everything is free. So you can just, this is one of the digital business models that we have, try it out, register, see what's going on, and you get even a free training from us how to use it. But rest assured, it's actually super simple. You can almost figure out yourself how everything works. Of course, we need to survive from something as well. We're taking a small transaction fee, usually from the seller, although we have some arrangements also in place where the buyer covers the entire transaction fees because they're so happy with using the platform. That they are saying, look, it's a tool for me, this is something that I want to use, so I'm going to cover the costs of that as well. But it really, there is no average cost that I can name here because it really depends on the commodity. More liquid commodities have usually much lower transaction costs than less liquid commodities, but we can clearly say that the costs will never exceed 0.4% of a transaction. Most of the time, it's less than that.
Maybe I take the last one. Probably the last one. So I would suggest do your own research because this is exactly what we just said. So we can tell you now how our platform is evaluated by its users, but it's more powerful. Do some digital digging, use Google, and find out if there's some testimonials. We're using LinkedIn as a channel, which in B2B is getting more and more important. So many CEOs of steel companies are using LinkedIn as a channel to communicate. And for example, recently, the head of purchasing from the MAT, the Mat Foundry Group, Sean, made a statement that he's really happy. He will do all his long-term agreements for next year through Metalshub. Because for him, it's a significant improvement in workflow and reduction in bureaucracy.
Will you at some point in time issue indices based on the deals done on your platform replacing Metal Bulletin soon? Well, I think Metal Bulletin doesn't exist actually as a name anymore. It's now Fast Markets. Will we do that? Of course we have also transactional data, and what we will do is, of course, we will speak to our users what is in their interest. That's the key thing. The best way of doing that is also a question, so we cannot give you a precise answer on that here.
Yeah, and the last one, can a company use your platform privately as a tool for low liquidity raw materials? So our main goal is to build a liquid marketplace, so we're not trying to be a private software tool. That being said, we are now thinking about developing a whitelisting function where you could just invite specific companies to quote or to negotiate with, where you can really target a certain audience.
How do you guarantee performance by counterparts concluded on the platform? So, number one, we have a very rigid approval process of companies registering on the platform. So we check, are they sanctioned, are they legitimate, where they're located, who are the owners, and so on. So there's a certain threshold to just register, because without this you cannot even get on Metalshub. So it's not like open for everyone. This is the job that we do. Number two is, of course, and I spoke earlier about that also in the presentation. You get reviews, you get ratings on Metalshub as well, whether you perform and how you perform, how your quality was. So this is something that you can take as a basis for decision making, whether to buy from a counterparty or sell to a counterparty or not. Of course, we cannot guarantee it. We're not an exchange. We don't take any kind of clearing services, which means we can make sure that A delivers to B. But there are enough measures that even we have on Metalshub to make sure there's a performance by counterparty.
And again, if you look at the data, so I think in a few hundred transactions we had 3 contract defaults. So the problem is I don't have the comparison number. How many contract defaults do you have in the offline world? But I would argue it's probably more than 1% of the contracts. So that also is an indication.
I think this anonymous question asking works very well.